Welcome to You Can Do It Maths. And today we're doing the 2021 October-November paper 21 extended. Let's go. Question 1. P is a prime number. Right, first, prime numbers. Remember, prime numbers has only got two factors. The number itself and 1. Okay, prime numbers is 2, 3, 5, 7, etc. Alright. Where P is between 60 and 80, so it's a prime number between 60 and 80. P is 2 less than a square number. So let's think about square numbers around about 60 and 80. So what comes to mind is 8 squared, which is 64. All right, but P is 2 less than a square number, and 64 minus 2 is 62, and that is not a prime number because the 62 can be divided by 2. And I'm sure about lots of other things. So let's try the next square number. 9 squared is 81. 2 less than 81 is 79. 2 less is 79. Is 79 a prime number? Could very well be. I don't see any other number between 60 and 80, which is 2 less than a square number. So that must be it, 79. Question 2a, and this is Hank flying halfway around the world. Okay, and his flight departs on Friday at a certain time. It's 13 hours 35. You think he's flying across the Atlantic or across Europe and Asia? Okay, let me know in the comments. The local time in Shanghai is 15 hours ahead of the local time in Los Angeles. What I think we're going to do first, we're going to see what time does Hank arrive in Shanghai, Los Angeles time. All right, so we're going to start doing the time jumps. Time jumps looks like this, right? So at 21:40, his flight departs. Okay, and this is on Friday, the 22nd. Okay, so we jump first. First, we jump 20 minutes to 10 o'clock at night. And then we will jump another 2 hours to midnight. Okay, now that's not 2 hours to H. Okay, so we need to jump 13 hours in total, so we need to jump another 11. So that will be 11 o'clock in the morning. We have now gone past midnight, right? So it's now swap to Saturday, the 23rd of July. Okay, so that was 11 hours we jumped. So that's the 13 in total. We've jumped already 20 minutes, so we need to jump another 15 minutes to make up the 35. So we jump another 15 minutes. 11:15 in the morning, he will arrive Los Angeles time, but that won't be the time in Shanghai. Shanghai is 15 hours ahead. Remember, they are already further away in the day. They get up 15 hours before Los Angeles. So now we need to jump another 15 hours to get the actual time in Shanghai. Okay, so once again, I think what we'll do is we'll jump to midnight, because that is, oh, but let's just jump to quarter past midnight so we don't lose any parts of an hour. So we're going to jump 13 hours from 11 to 24, and then again we're going into Sunday the 24th. Okay, so we now jump 13 hours. Okay, we need to jump 15, so we need to jump another 2 hours. That gives us 2:15. That's the time in Shanghai. 2:15 in the morning. We have now gone all the way to Sunday, and the date is the 24th. 24th of July. Okay, I read the examiner's report, and they said one problem was ugly handwriting in the exam. So you need to make sure that your numbers are very clear. Okay, very readable. And that's it. Question 2b. We've got an exchange rate of $1 equals 6.871. I don't know how to pronounce that. We want to exchange $920. So that means we simply need to multiply by 920 to keep the ratio equivalent, which will give us 6,320 and 40 yuan. Okay. Now, very important here. Do we round it to 3 significant figures? No. This is an exact answer. Okay, there's not a long row of decimals. This is exact. So this is what we write, 632.40. No rounding in this case. Question 3. Calculate. Obviously, this is with the calculator. And if you can put everything at once in your calculator, you got a lot better chance of getting things right. So let's go. 4.87 minus 2.7. Down arrow negative. It's better to use that negative button there. 0.2 plus shift cube root 0.729 equal, okay, and write it exact answer 3.1. Question 4. The number of items that each 22 people buy in a supermarket. Remember that number is important. 22 is shown in the stem and leaf diagram. Find the most, the most occurring number, and they have to be next to each other, and that is those ones there. There are 3 2's next to each other, right? Remember, the answer is not 2, it is 22, okay, as is described in the key. Next, find the median. This is not the mean, the median, middle number. Okay, one method of finding the middle number is taking the total amount of people, 22, add 1. You'll see later why that's important. That's 23 and divided by 2. So 23 divided by 2 will give us 11.5. Now that's not the median. That is where we need to find the median between the 11th and the 12th value. So let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 11 is there. So the middle is going to be after 29. Okay, because then if we count all the numbers bigger than that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So we've got 11 and 11. So the 11th value is 29, and the 12th value, okay, is 31. So the middle is between 29 and 31. And what's halfway between 29 and 31? Of course, 30. So 30 will be the middle value there. Question 5, and this tells us a table of games won, lost, and drawn by a football team. Important sentence here is the number of games lost is twice the number of games drawn. Okay, the best is to write an equation here. So if we say the number of games that they drew is X, then the number of games they lost is twice that number. That will be 2X. The next thing to remember is that all the possible outcomes always needs to add up to 1. So 0.1 plus 2x plus x, all the possible outcomes needs to add up to 1. Okay, that means if we subtract 0.1, those two values, lost and drawn, should add up to 0.9, or there's a 90% chance that they will lose or draw a match. Not a very good team. 2x plus 1x is 3x. Then we divide it by 3. So x is 0.3. Okay, now the instruction is complete the table. So of course, okay, we don't leave x and 2x. Okay, what we're going for is the probability of drawing. That was x is 0.3. So double that, or 2x is 0.6. and that adds up to 1, and that's correct. Question 6a, bearings and map scale. So first, this question is we need to find the actual distance between P and Q, which means we need to measure it with a ruler. Okay, make sure always you start at 0 and you measure that distance very accurately. On my paper it's 7.9, but this is a photocopy of the actual paper, which means it's slightly changed. On the real paper it was 8.2 centimeters, so you need to write that down, 8.2 centimeters. Okay, and then we got 1 centimeter is 4 kilometers, times that by 4, which will give you 32.8. Okay, they were lenient here. They mark anything by 2 millimeters off, from anything from 8 to 8.4 centimeters seem to have gotten you that first mark, but they wanted to be accurate for the second part. Okay, next one is measure the bearing of town Q from town P. So here we need to look very carefully. When it says from, that is where we're going to put our protractor. So from town P means we need to go to town P, and that's where we are traveling from, so that's where we measure the bearing from. Okay, ask for a protractor in the exam if you don't have one. Remember the rules of bearings. Okay, always have 0 degrees pointing north, always go clockwise, and because we are now going from 0, in this case we're using the outside numbers. Okay, well, it needs to have a line there first, of course, to measure the actual bearing. So draw a very accurate line with a ruler and a pencil. Okay, so here we go. Make sure that cross is on P. Make sure we're not crooked. Everything needs to be perfect. Okay, starting at 0, going clockwise, and what I get is 65 degrees. Okay, 65 degrees. Now remember the third rule of bearings, always write 3 figures. So we need to write 0, 6, 5. Okay. Again, they don't give any information about being 1 degree off, so you need to be very accurate. Question 6c. Town X is 28 kilometers from town P on a bearing of 140 degrees. Okay, again, we're from town P. Let's start with a bearing of 140 degrees. Okay, so we go back here, put our protractor correctly, perfectly, 0 at the top. So we need to measure a bearing of 140 going clockwise from 0, 140, which means we use the outside numbers, and we mark a point there. Right, now this is the direction, it's not the distance though. Okay, the distance is 28 kilometers. Now remember, 1 centimeter is 4 kilometers, so we need to do 28 divided by 4, which gives us 7 centimeters. So on here, we need to go in that direction of 140, exactly 7 centimeters. So make sure that we go through the point, which shows the right direction, and exactly 7 centimeters. Okay, they say mark the position with an X, so clearly mark there with an X. That is the point. Okay, be accurate, you can do it. Question 7 says, without using a calculator, work out 1 and 5/6 plus 2/5. Without using a calculator means if you're going to do this on your calculator, there's nobody who's going to check if you use your calculator. But if you're going to do this on your calculator and press equal, okay, Remember, it says we want the answer as a mixed number in its simplest form. So you can change an improper fraction to a mixed number by pressing Shift and that button over there. 2 and 7 over 30. If you were to do this though, you won't get any marks. 0. Okay. What they want to see is everything in the middle. This space, this blank space in the middle needs to be filled out. All right. So we start by changing mixed fractions to improper fractions. I mean, you don't have to do this, but most successful candidates is the ones that do change this. There are less mistakes made. So changing that mixed fraction to an improper fraction is 1 times 6 is 6, plus 5 is 11 over 6. Okay. If you forget for any reason how to do that, you can put 1 and 5 over 6 into your calculator and it will do it for you. All right. So that will be your first mark. Next mark, because we're adding, we need to get the denominators the same. Common factor of 6 and 5, of course, is 30. So we multiply the 6 by 5, so we do the same at the top. That gives us 55. We multiply the 5 by 6, we do the same there. That is 12. All that's left now to do is add this together. That will give us 67 over 30, which, if changed to a mixed number, is 2 over 30. So actually, we've done this. Okay, 67 over 30. We already saw that before. We can change it ourselves. Now we've shown every step, and that's it. We've got our marks. We get a mark for changing the mixed fraction to an improper fraction. You get a mark for using a common denominator, and you get a mark then only after those two previous marks for the correct answer as a mixed number in its simplest form. Question 8. There are different ways of doing this. You can do the substitution method, or you can try to get the x coefficients the same, but multiplying the top one by 3 and the bottom one by 4. But the most successful candidate, students that got the most leaders correct, is the one that did the most straightforward method, and that is by multiplying the top equation by 2, which will give us 8x minus 4y equals negative 26. So that if I write the second equation again, we now have minus 4y and plus 4y. So we can eliminate the y first. Okay. Next thing we need to decide, are we going to add or subtract these two equations? Now, if we're going to subtract the bottom one from the top one, I'll get minus 4y minus plus 4y, which is minus 4y, which is minus 8y, which will not work, okay? Because we want to eliminate the y value. So that's why we're going to add them together. Be very careful with the signs here. That is where most people make mistakes. We got 8x plus minus 3x. Plus and a minus, of course, is minus. So 8x minus 3x is 5x, or positive 5x. Minus 4y plus plus 4y is minus 4y plus 4y. That eliminates the y. That's what we wanted. And then negative 26 plus 11. Be careful here. That is negative 15. Okay. If you're confused, use your calculator. Check it with your calculator. So all that's left to do now is divide negative 15 by 5. We get x is minus 3. Right. We are halfway there. Now we just need to find the y value. Okay. We can substitute it into any of the above equations, but I'm going to choose the second one here, simply because the y value is positive, and it looks like it's going to be a little bit easier if we do it there. So in that equation, we've got minus 3, and then instead of x, we got negative 3 plus 4y equals 11. Now, minus 3 times minus 3 is 9. Again, be careful with the signs. Then we need to subtract 9 from both sides. That gives me 4y equals 2 divided by 4, which will give us a half. or 0.5. Okay, if you like decimals more, write 0.5, but a half is fine. Always check your answer, okay? Let's do it with the first one. Let's take the first equation. Okay, you don't get any marks for this, but of course, if you spot any mistakes, you won't lose any marks. All right, so we got 4. We said x is minus 3, minus 2, y is a half. Let's make it 0.5 this time. Okay, 4 times minus 3 is minus 12. Minus 2 times a half is minus 1. Minus 12 minus 1 is minus 13, and that is correct. Minus 13 does equal minus 13. We know we got it right. Question 9. The moment you see that right angle triangle, you immediately need to think Pythagoras or SOHCAHTOA. Pythagoras is when we only deal with the sides of the triangle. SOHCAHTOA when it's sides and angles. And yes, we got an angle involved there. So we're going to use SOHCAHTOA. So let's label our triangle. The side opposite the 90-degree angle, the longest side, that's our hypotenuse. And then 7 is right next to the angle, that's the adjacent. So we're using A and H. This means we're using the middle ratio, which is cos the angle equals A is first, so that's at the top, 7 over 12. So to calculate x, we need to do the inverse of cos to the power of minus 1, 7 over 12. Okay, here we go. Press shift, cos, fraction, 7 over 12. And we got the answer. 54.31, etc. Rounded to three significant figures. 54.3. Question 10. A regular polygon has an interior angle of 174 degrees. Let's draw a lower part of that polygon. I don't know how many sides it's got, but it's got many sides. So imagine there's a polygon and it continues outside the screen there. The interior angle, the inside angle is 174. Now, these are angles on a straight line, so that means if the interior angle is 174, the exterior angle would be 180 minus 174, which is 6 degrees. Okay, why is it good to know the exterior angle? Because we know that the exterior angles of every single polygon adds up to 360. So all we need to do now is 360 divided by 6, which of course will give us 60 degrees. Not 60 degrees, 60 sides. Okay, 60 sides. That would be the sides of the polygon. Question 11. It talks about a line with the equation y equals 4 minus 5x. And we need to find the equation of the perpendicular line that passes through 0, 6. So I'm going to show you what this looks like so that you know what it needs to look like in your head. Right, so in the red, we've got the line. Let me just get this right. Okay, this red line here is the line y equals 4 minus 5x. Okay, now as you can see, the blue line, there we go, it is perpendicular and it goes through the point there, 0, 6, or rather 6 on the y-axis. Okay, firstly, over here, that minus 5, of course, that is the gradient of the line that we have. So that would be the gradient of the red line. And if we look at that, okay, gradient means the rise over the run. So as you can see, going up 5 and 1 to the left, that will give us a gradient there of 5 over minus 1, which is minus 5, as we can see in the equation. Okay, the minus 5 there. Now, next thing is the 4. What does the 4 mean? What's going on here? The 4 there, it's a positive 4. It means that there on the y-axis, that line goes through 4. Okay, now What about the perpendicular line? Let's first of all look at the gradient of the perpendicular line. If we draw a little triangle there, you can now see the rise is 1 and the run is 5. The change in y is 1 and 5. So this will be a gradient of 1 over 5. Okay, so that's the first thing we can write down here. If I have a gradient of minus 5, okay, or rather minus 5 over 1, the perpendicular line, the direction changes, so the negative becomes positive, and we swap around the gradient. 1 over 5 becomes 1/5. Okay, so that means my equation will be y equals 1/5 x, and then plus c. Plus c is, of course, where it crosses the y-axis. Okay, and do we know where it crosses the y-axis? In this case, yes, it's pretty straightforward. They've told us. There it is, 0, 6. 0 means it is on the y-axis, the value is 6. So all we need to do here is then change our c value for 6. And that's it. Okay, remember, you need to write an equation. So you have to put y equals, write a clear gradient plus 6. And then you've got it. Question 12, percentages is always tricky. Well, child invests some money, smart move. By the end of the first year, the value of the investment has decreased by 35%. Now remember this, whenever we decrease something, it always the same thing happens. You take the original money, which is always 100%, and you decrease it by 35%, you are left with 65%. Okay, or as a decimal value or a multiplier, that's 0.65. By the end of the second year, the value of the investment has increased by 40%. That means we take the value that we have, which is always 100%, we start off with. This is the value we start off at the end of the first year, 100%. And then we, because it's increasing, we add 40% to that. So that means we end up with 140% of what we had before. Of course, as a multiplier, that's 1.4. So if we want to know the total percentage change, we just multiply these two with each other. That's 0.65 times 1.4. Let's do that. 0.65 times 1.4, and that gives us 0.91. Okay, as a percentage, that is of course 91%. Now that is how much we had of the original 100%. Okay, so how much did it change? Well, it's 9% less. If this is confusing, it might help to pick a value for the money, and a good value to pick is $100. So let's say he invested $100. Okay, so first we decrease that $100 by 35%, which means we times it by 0.65, and yes, he's left with $65. Bad investment. Then we take that amount, $65, okay, because this is the end of the first year, and we increase it by 140%, so we times it by 1.4, and we'll see he ends up with $91. Okay, which is $9 less, and because we picked a value of $100, it will be the same as a percentage, and that's the answer, 9%. Now you can put a minus in front to show it's a decrease of 9%, but on the mark scheme, that minus doesn't matter. If it's there or not there, you won't lose your marks. The 9 is what is important. Question 13, don't let that inequality sign throw you off. Okay, we treat it like an equal sign, but don't change it to an equal sign. We keep it as an inequality sign. Right, so the first thing we want to do here is we want to get rid of any fractions. That means we multiply the 5 on both sides or on the other side like that. Right, so that will give us 20 minus 15x. Right, the next step would be to get all the x's on the same side. Okay, now I prefer to keep my x's positive, so that means I'd rather add 15x to both sides. That means I will be left here with minus x plus 15x, because that will make it positive. All right, and that means I will subtract the 6 from both sides, which will give us 20 minus 6. So that leaves us with 14 bigger or less than 14x. So it looks good. Now we just need to divide the 14. So 14 divided by 14 is 1. Right. So that means my answer is 1 is less than or equal to x. Or if we write it the other way around, like on the mark scheme, x is less than or equal to 1. But I'm sure both these answers will be correct, as long as the x is on the less than sign. Now, there is something that can go wrong if you're not careful. Okay, if I got rid of the x's first, so with this step here, if we did it the other way around, we left the minus 15x where it is, and then we added the x. Okay, and let's write down a sign, and on the other side we would have had the 6 minus the 20. So that will leave us with negative 14x and negative 14. So then if I divide the negative 14 by the negative 14, I get x is bigger than or equal to 1. Now there's a problem here. As you can see, I didn't get the same answer. Here it says the x is bigger and there the x is smaller. Okay, that means when it comes to inequalities, you need to be very careful. The moment that you divide with a negative, over there we divide it with a negative 14, you need to swap your sign around to get the right answer. Okay, be aware of that. Best thing is to always try to keep the x positive by moving the negative x's so it becomes positive, so you don't get confused. But remember, if you ever do divide by negative, you need to swap the sign. Question 14, y is inversely proportional to the square root of x minus 2. Let's put that whole sentence in mathematical language. So y, inverse proportion means we're not going to put it as a denominator, as a decimal. Square root, not square, of x minus 2. Okay, proportionate, that's the sign for proportion. Now we need to make an equation out of this, and if you want to make an equation to make it equal, you need to bring in the constant k. We need to put it in there. Okay, once we got our equation now, we can substitute the values x and y into that equation. So y equals 12 and x is 4.25 minus 2. Okay, we do this because we want to calculate the constant k. Okay, to work out k, I need to, everything that's being divided here, I need to multiply it there. So that will be 12 times square root 4.25 minus 2, or 2.2 square root 2.25. Okay, anyway, just put it in your calculator, just like that, to avoid any confusion. And then we get the constant k, which is 18. Okay, that's not the answer, of course. We want to know what's x when y equals 3. But what we can do now is we can rewrite this equation here with a constant k, 18. So that will be 18 over square root x minus 2. We want to do that now because when we put the y into this equation, we can calculate what is x. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to substitute that y for 3. And we can calculate what is x. Okay, so to find x, let's first get rid of that denominator there. So it means we're going to multiply that over there, which will be 3 times square root x over 2. But we want to get the 3 on the other side, so we're going to divide that. Basically, you swap them around. Okay, so that gives us square root x minus 2 equals 18 over 3. Okay, 18 over 3, of course, is 6. So the next step will be to get rid of that square root. So what means we square both sides. So that will give you x minus 2. 18 divided by 6. Well, let me write this step properly. That gives me x minus 2 equals 6 squared, which is 36. Add 2 to both sides, and we get the answer 38. Question 15. Very few candidates got this right in the original exam. There are many traps here to fall into. Okay, so we're gonna go slowly. Keep with us. First of all, they give us the ratio of the heights of the shapes. That means if this was 1 centimeter, I'm going to put some units here to make things clear. It could be 1 meter, it could be 1 millimeter. It doesn't say. That's what a ratio is. Let's assume it's centimeters. If the height of that rectangle is 1 centimeter, then the height of this rectangle is 5 centimeters, and the height of that one is 8 centimeters. Okay, that's the ratios. But now they want to find the ratios of the area. So you need to be careful, because these centimeters, these ratios are not, they are linear. They are not centimeter square, whereas they're talking here about centimeter square. Now to help us, I want you to assume that these are squares and not rectangles. Okay, which means then that the area of the center square will be 1 centimeter square, but the area of the shaded part will be 25 centimeters square, because it's 5 times 5, and the area of the big rectangle would be 64 centimeters square, because we're talking about squares, we're talking about area. We need to work out the area. Okay, that's the first thing that can go wrong, going from linear to area. The second thing that can go wrong is they've stacked these things on top of each other. Okay, they are not next to each other, they're on top of each other. So, meaning, if we're talking about the unshaded area, for example, let's start with the shaded area. The shaded area is got a rectangle on top of it. Okay, so if the shaded area is 25 centimeters square, there is in the middle cut out, we could say, an unshaded area. So the shaded area is all of this minus that center part. So we just subtract the 1 centimeter square from that. So the shaded area will be 24 centimeters square. Okay. Now, because we're talking about ratios here, we can leave out the units later. We're using it now to make things clear. Then, remember, this was the shaded. The unshaded is also complicated, because we got the big rectangle, which is 64 centimeters square. On top of that is the shaded rectangle, which is 25. So we just subtract that. And then on top of that is then an unshaded one again. So we need to add that. Okay, that will give us the total area of the unshaded. So what's that? 64 minus 25 plus 1, 40. Okay, now again, like I said, because this is ratio, we can leave out the units. That will be the ratio of the shaded to the unshaded, 24 over 40. Now remember, they want you to give it in its simplest form, meaning we can divide both of these by 8, or divide it by 2, and by 2, and by 2, or divide by 4, whatever you want to do, which will give us in the end 28 minus divided by 4 is 3, 40 divided by 8 is 5. Okay, there we go. That is the correct answer. It is a difficult question, but you can do it. Question 16a, find the nth terms of these sequences. So what you always do is you look at the common difference. So first we add 7, then we add 19, 71 minus 34, we add 37, and by now you should recognize that this is not going to be easy. Then we added 61. Okay, if you're confused, look at the second difference. From 7 to 19, we add 12. Then we add 18. Then we add 24. Aha, here we spot a pattern. We add 6 more each time. Now, if you got to that point, adding 6 more each time on the mark scheme, you'll get 1 mark for that. Okay, but that still doesn't give us the nth term rule. Okay, which they want, not the next term, the nth term rule. So, what sequence follows the same pattern? Now, remember the sequences we have. We got n squared, that will be 1 times 1 is 1, 2 times 2 is 4, 3 times 3 is 9, 4 times 4 is 16, 5 times 5 is 25. What is the common difference there? Is we add 2 more each time. We add 3, we add 5, we add 7, we add 9. Okay, that's not it. Then we, of course, we got the cubic, and cubed, which is 1 times 1 times 1 is 1. 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. 4 times 4 times 4 is 64. So what do we add here each time? Okay, we add 7, then we add 19, then we add 37, and that's what we had up there. So we've just done that. We've recognized that this is a cubic sequence. So that will be n cubed. Okay, so by the way, if you don't get that mark for adding 6, n cubed gets you the mark. Okay, but what's the difference here? Let's see. We got 8, 15, 34, 71. The cubic sequence is actually 1, 8, 27, 64. How do we get from 1 to 8, or from 8 to 15, or from 27 to 34, or from 64 to 71? Yes, we need to add 7 each time. And that is the final correct answer. Okay. For question B, treat each one of these as separate sequences. So the numerator above the line, there we add 1 each time. So that's easy. That is the most basic sequence there is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right? That's n. Only difference here, we go 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We know that 1, we start at 2. Then we go from 2 to 3, so we need to add 1 each time. So that's n plus 1. Lots of students got that right. For the next sequence, below the line, I'm sure if you look carefully, you can spot that this is different. This is geometric, which means we're not adding, we're multiplying every time by 4. Now, there is a formula for geometric sequences that you need to memorize. The formula being A1 Rn minus 1. Okay, this is something you need to write down and memorize. Let's highlight it. Okay, yeah, learn that. What does this mean? A1 being the first term, R is the rate, and then n is what we're writing the nth term. Okay, so in this case, using our formula, the first term is 1, so we write 1 times. The rate is the common difference each time. We're multiplying it by 4, and the rest of the formula we leave it is. Now, anything times 1 is the same, so our answer here is 4n minus 1. Question 17, make x the subject. Okay, slowly, do not fear, we can do this. First thing you always want to do is you want to get rid of any fractions, which means you take that 1 minus x and you multiply it on the other side. That will give you y times 1 minus x equals 3x minus 2. Okay, next step would be to get rid of the brackets, which means we multiply out the brackets. Y times 1 is y, and y times x is yx or xy, either way around. I like to keep it alphabetical. Okay, notice how I line up my equal signs and I don't throw anything away. That avoids confusion later on. Right, next thing we want to do is we're going to get all the x's on the same side. Okay, now we can move the 3x there, but that's going to make my x's negative. It's not wrong doing that, but that results in more mistakes later on. So what I rather do is I want to keep my x's positive, so I'm going to move the minus xy to that side. So that will give me 3x. The minus xy becomes plus xy. And of course, there's a minus 2 here, which then I'm moving there. Don't lose that y. The y is still there. The y is still there, but the minus 2 becomes a plus 2. Right, so things are looking good. There's no more brackets. There's no more fractions. And things are positive. So next step, factorization. We want to make these two x's 1x. So we want to factorize it out. That's a common factor of those two terms. We factorize it out. We make the brackets. We got 3 left there and a y left there. So x times 3 is 3x. X times y is xy. Don't lose the y plus 2 on the other side. We're almost there. The last step would be then x is being multiplied with this whole bracket, 3 plus y. So we want to divide that. So we divide it on the other side. So we got y plus 2 divided by that whole black bracket, 3 plus y. And that is the correct answer. Okay, now of course, because the 3 and the y is positive, okay, it doesn't matter which way around you write them. So you can write 2 plus y or y plus 2, it doesn't matter. And you can write 3 plus y or y plus 3. I'm just writing it the way it is on the mark scheme. And that's it. You've done it. Question 18. You should recognize here that we're talking about area, 400 meters square, which means we need to work out the area of that triangle. Now, of course, we're always going to go first for half base times perpendicular height. Okay, that's very useful if you actually have the perpendicular height. You can use SOHCAHTOA and work it out, and you can get the answer in the end by doing that. It is just there's a lot more working out to do, and there's a lot more mistakes that can creep in, and this is only 3 marks. Okay, so the formula that you need to remember and use here is this sine area formula, which is half AB sin C. Okay, remember that one? That's the alternative formula for the area of a triangle. And this one will go a lot quicker with a lot less hassle. Now, half the A and the B is not going to be the same A and B in our triangle here. So I'm going to relabel my triangle, right? Sin C is the angle that I have. So instead of that being an A, that's going to be my C now, which means the other two is going to be A and B. It could be any way around. It doesn't matter. Okay. But what's important is that that's the sin C. So now, because I change it, that's A. That means this is the small a. And this is B, so that's the small b. But if you swap these two around, it doesn't matter. What's important is that you then have the angle 30 degrees. So we put that into our calculator. And we have an answer. 460,000. And what is that? That is meters square. Okay, is that our final answer? No. We are building houses on that 460,000 meters square. And each house is 400 meters square. So we divide that by 400 to get the final answer. So we divide that by 400. And there we go. Our answer is 1,150. That is an exact answer, so you're not going to round it to 3 significant figures. Oh, it's already 3 significant figures. You just write it down as it is. Question 19, algebraic fractions. That's always fun. Remember the first thing, when we add or subtract fractions, we need to get the denominator the same. Let's look at a basic example. Let's see if we do, for example, if we add a half and 2/3. First thing we're going to do there, if we get the denominators the same, which is the lowest common multiple, which is 6. Now, because I multiply 2 by 3, I multiply 1 by 3, so that will be 3. And because I multiply 3 by 2, I multiply 2 by 2, and that's 4. Okay, that's called the smiley face method. And we want to do the same now here for this algebraic fraction. So the first thing we do is we multiply the bottom two terms together. Okay, so that will be 7 times x plus 3. You put brackets there because we're multiplying everything. Then we multiply the 7 with the 2, that is 14. Then look carefully, there's a minus, so we put the minus. And then we multiply x plus 3 and x plus 2. Make sure to put all of this in brackets because you're multiplying all of x plus 3 with all of x plus 2. Okay, next step. We do not have to multiply out that denominator 7x plus 3. It's better to leave it the way it is because later on we might be able to cancel. You can't cancel out yet, yeah? You can't cancel the x plus 3 and the x plus 3 because there's that minus there. Can't be cancelled. Okay, so we leave it the way it is, 7x plus 3. What we need to do is we need to calculate those double brackets. Leave the minus where it is, leave the brackets where it is, and now we start. X times x is x squared, x times 2 is 2x. 3 times x is 3x, and 3 times 2 is 6. Bam. We're on the right track here. Now we can get rid of those brackets at the top by imagining that minus as actually a minus 1 and multiplying it into the bracket. Okay, so we leave the bottom part the same. 7x plus 3. We leave the 14 where it is. We now multiply that minus 1 and so minus 1 times x squared is minus 1x squared, or just minus x squared. This 2x plus 3x is 5x, so 5x times minus 1 is minus 5x, and minus 1 times 6 is minus 6. Okay, now simplify what's above the line. We got a negative x squared, a negative 5x, and 14 minus 6 is, of course, 8. So that's a positive 8. Okay. Because in fact, we can't factorize. Okay. So that's it. I'm going to leave it at that. So that's my final answer. Okay. At the bottom, we got 7x plus 3. If we did multiply out this bracket, that's fine. And the top, we can leave it the way it is. Okay, on the mark scheme, they've just written it in a different order. They put the 8 in front, as long as the 8 is positive. Then they put the minus 5x, as long as there is a minus in front of the 5x and a minus in front of the x squared. Okay, but either way, if you write it like this is correct, or you write it like that, both is correct. Question 20. Okay, there's a lot to cover here. First of all, we want to find out what is x. All right, so we're going to rearrange that equation. We're going to start by dividing the 3. So that will leave us with 2 plus cos x equals 5 over 3. Then subtract the 2. So that will give us cos x equals 5 over 3 minus 2. And the last step, because we want to know just what is x, we do the inverse of cos. Cos to the power of minus 1, 5 over 3 minus 2. So let's put in our calculator just like that. Shift cos minus 1, 5 over 3 minus 2, close bracket. and we have an answer. Okay, now remember, this is an angle, so we're going to write this. Well, let's write down the whole answer first. 0.47, etc. Rounded gives us x equals 109.5. Okay, angles always to one decimal place. But when it comes to trigonometry, remember there is more than one answer. You need to, many students forget this, you need to remember what the cosine graph looks like. Make yourself a little sketch there. If you forget, type in, right, cos 0 degrees equals 1. That's why on here it starts there at 1. Okay, and then cos 90 degrees is 0. Then we know it goes through 0 there. Anyway, let's get back to what's important. Right, so the answer we got 109 degrees roughly on the graph here. We're roughly about there. Okay, and if we go down and across, we will get a value there. The value that we actually worked out here, there before we put everything on the calculator, which is that one. What's 5 over 3 is 1 2/3 minus, let's work it out, yeah? 5 over 3 minus 2 minus 1/3. Okay, so that's it. Here, this is minus 1/3. That is what cos that angle is. Cos, okay, we can type that in. What was it? Cos 109 point, what did we put? 5 bracket equal. See, that's very close to negative 1/3 because I've rounded it. Okay, the point being here, there is another answer. Let's do this in a different color. And the answer, if we go from minus 1/3, we go across until we reach our graph and we go down, there will be another angle that has the same answer. It's not shown on our calculator, but it's there. Okay, now to find this, we just need to look here. Okay, that the distance here from 90 degrees, or rather, because it's symmetrical through 180, the distance from here to there, which was 109.5, will be the same distance from 360 to 270. Okay, how do we find that value then? We subtract it from 160. And then we'll have the answer. So what is that? 360 minus 109.5. And there we go. 250.5. And we got our other answer. That's our second answer. And that's what we need to write down as well. So x is also equal to 360 minus 109.47, which would give us 250.5. So to get full marks, you need to do all of it. Draw yourself a little sketch of the course graph to help you remind you how to find both answers. And then you've done it. Of course, we can check if our answers is correct by substituting our answers into the equation there. So if I do 3, 2 plus cos 109.5, okay, our answer, because I've rounded, our answer should be close to 5. So let's have a look. 3 bracket 2 plus cos 109.5. There we go, very close to 5. And if we put in our second answer, which was 250.5, we should also get something very close to 5. So let's change that to 250.5. Bam, same answer, rounded, it's 5. Question 21, here we come. The diagram shows a pyramid ABCDE. It's got a base, square base, and there's the vertex, and there's the 9 centimeters. Everything is there. They want us to work out the angle EC. So let's mark that. The angle EC is EC makes with the base ABCD. So if we continue there, we'll see now we got a right angle triangle. What do we have in this right angle triangle? In this right angle triangle, we've got E, C, O is 90 degrees, and that is 9. Okay, and we need to find the angle ECO. Okay, now we've got some information lacking there. We need at least another angle or another side, and then we can use SOHCAHTOA or Pythagoras. Okay, it's right angle triangles, SOHCAHTOA or Pythagoras. Okay, so what other information have we? We've got 5 centimeters. So if we were to swap colors there, they form part of this triangle on the base of the pyramid, and that's a 90-degree angle. Okay, so if we were to draw that triangle here, it goes from A to C. The angle at B is 90 degrees. We know this is 5 and this is 5. So yes, we can use Pythagoras to find AC. So let's start with that. Okay, that means AC equals the square root of 5 squared plus 5 squared. Let's hammer that in. Square root of 5 squared plus 5 squared. Okay, now we can write 7.071067, etc., but it's quicker, it's more accurate to do 5 square root 2. Leave it in square surd form. Okay, and definitely do not round anything yet. All right, so we got AC, which is that whole diagonal of the base. Now we only want this part here, which of course is exactly half. So we're going to half that. 5 square root 2 divided by 2. That will give me OC. OC. You see how I label the sides? So when the examiner marks it, he knows exactly what we're doing. All right. Again, 3.5355, right? We write that, or better, leave it in surd form. Okay, now we got more information. We can write it down. We got here 5 square root 2 over 2. Okay, so we're back to triangle OEC. We want to know the angle ECO. Okay, let's write down angle ECO. That's what we want to work out. Okay, we're working with sides and angles in a right angle triangle. So we're going to use SOHCAHTOA. Let's write this down. SOHCAHTOA. Let's label our triangle here. Right. So this is the angle. 5 square root 2 over 2. That is right next to it. So that's the adjacent. And the 9 is the opposite. So here we go. We use the ratio of tan. So we write tan, the angle ECO. O is first, so that's 9 over 5 square root 2 over 2. Okay, looks a bit crazy. Okay, but it works. So final step, to find the angle ECO, we need to do the inverse of tan over 9 divided by 5 square root 2 over 2. So let's put that into our calculator. Shift tan fraction 9 over, okay, we can type 5 square root 2 over 2, or we can just put answer. That will insert my previous answer, which was that one, into my calculator. Close the bracket, and there we've got an answer. Let's write that down. ECO equals 68.553, etc. Okay, it's not an exact answer, so we need to round it to 3 significant figures. which is 68.6. Okay. Students lose marks here if they prematurely round their answers and they're not accurate enough. Make sure you write down clearly what you're calculating. So write down ECO for the angles. Write down AC, OC for the sides you're working out. That way you can get full marks, or you can pick up marks if your final answer is not 100% correct. Question 22a, simplify. It looks crazy, but let's just rewrite this as x to the power of 2/3 divided by x to the power of 8/3. Then remember our laws of indices. If we are dividing indices with the same base number, we subtract the indices. So it's 2/3 minus 8/3. Let's not waste our time. Don't break your head. Quickly hammer it into your calculator. Okay. Save you time. Press equal. And that gives you x to the power of -2. Okay. Which of course is correct. But you can also write it as 1/x squared. Both of those is correct. The one or the other. Question 22b, find the value of k. Best thing here is to get the base numbers the same. So let's think, right? 16, what does 16 equal to? It equals 2 to the power of 4, right? Check it, 2 to the power of 4, 16, brilliant. What does 64 equal to? Is it 2 to the power of 5? It's 2 to the power of 6. 2 to the power of 6, 64. Brilliant. So now we just do that to the top. 16 equals 2 to the power of 4. 64 equals 2 to the power of 6. Okay, but there is already a k, and that will be a power to the power. So we can actually rewrite it like this to be 100% accurate, which we then can simplify as 2 to the power of 6k. Extra step in there. Now, because our base numbers is the same, it means this equals that. So we got 4 equals 6k. So 4 divided by 6 equals k. Okay. 4/6, of course, simplifies to 2/3. Question 22c. We want to follow the same basic step as the previous question. We want to get all the base numbers the same. So let's start with 1/9. 1/9 is the same as 1/3 squared, and then we can write that as a normal number if we put a minus, so that's 3/-2. Okay, so to rewrite this whole equation, that will be 3 to the power of 3x times, same as above, 3 to the power of -2, which we then have to multiply with 4 minus 3x equals 3 to the power of what? 3 to the power of 1, of course, because anything to the power of 1 stays the same. Forget that, check it. 3 to the power of 1 is 3. Brilliant. Okay, so let's get rid of those brackets. So -2 times 4 is -8. -2 times -3x is a plus 6x equals 3 to the power of 1. Now all our base numbers is the same. So, but yeah, let's do this step first, right? There's times, that what means we do with the indices there, we add them. So we can rewrite it as 3x plus, put brackets there to be safe. Okay. So let's see, what's 3x plus 6x is 9x. So we got 9x minus 8 equals 3 to the power of 1. That means 9x minus 8 equals 1. That means 9x equals 1 plus 8 gives us 9x equals 9, meaning x equals 9 divided by 9. our beautiful x equals 1. You want to know if it's right? Type it into your calculator there. 3 to the power of 3x, which is 3 times 1. Use the side arrow, times bracket fraction 1 over 9, close, oh, no, arrow, close bracket, to the power of 4 minus 3, bracket 1 equals, it's not right. It is correct. Well done. You can do it. That's it. We've done it. Hope you've enjoyed. Hope you found it helpful. Tell your friends about this. Please like and subscribe. See you again soon.